Welcome back to the channel, everybody. We were trying to get a little bit of hay cut. Dad mowed some for me yesterday, and I'm trying to get finished up today so we can try to get some hay rolled this week. And last year, at the very end of the season, he told me that this Discbine was making a funny noise, and all the gears and everything in it, it makes a lot of noise as it is. But we thought that it was in this gearbox, and it unfortunately is. I don't know if you can see, but that swivel right here, those two pieces aren't meeting evenly anymore, and so that gearbox is definitely about to bite it. So I've ordered a remanufactured gearbox for it that'll be here in a few days. We're just going to try to keep cutting. We've got a little bit left here where we're at. Going to finish it off, and then we're moving back to our house. We're over actually at my dad's house right now, and we've got some hay here on a couple of neighbors, and we're finishing up on one of the neighbors, and then we're going to move back to our house. Okay, so that's all she wrote for this little field. We're gonna wind up, we've got about a 5-mile or so drive down the road to get back to our house. And that's where we're gonna be going next, is move over there. We've got about 7 acres of this rye. What we cut over here is rye and crimson clover mix. And we've got about 7 acres of it over there at our house, and then another about 7-acre field that is too big for the cattle to keep grazing. We've got some cattle grazing on it, and it's just mostly orchard grass, a little bit of clover in it, but we're going to try to mow it. So I'm hoping that I can get those 2 fields done. Got about somewhere between 14 and 16 acres to do if everything works. I just don't know this Discbine is going to make it, so we're going to see. It's going to be about a week before that new to us gearbox comes in, and I'm hoping that I can get these fields done. We'll get this hay rolled a little bit later this week, and yeah, we'll see. There's a little bit more still to cut. I just getting a little bit nervous about going to try to cut it. I think I'm gonna just, if I can get those 2 fields at home cut, we'll call it quits right there. Most of the road between my mom and dad's place and our place is fairly narrow, and our Discbine is 13 feet wide. So we don't always do it, but we try to have somebody lead us over. Just try to avoid a couple of spots. We've got a bridge we have to go across and some different things that we just can't really meet a car on. We gotta try to keep somebody ahead of us and try to keep somebody from running over us on this. Give you a little perspective. Gotta give farmers some room, and a lot of equipment that's on the road right now is even bigger than this. Everybody's out trying to plant, and a lot of these corn planters and stuff don't fold up as narrow as what this thing is. So like I say, we take up the vast majority of a road like this. You gotta have some assistance from the public in moving. Well, so we are back at the Peckham Road shop, And we're gonna pull back here, check on Melissa and Chloe real quick, and go ahead and get started trying to cut this field right over here beside of us. So let's talk a little bit about the Discbine and what it is. I know that I've got a lot of my friends and stuff that did not grow up around agriculture or out in the country, and they have no idea what this thing is. But the Discbine is two parts. It's a disc mower, and we'll show you. I'll get outside and kind of show you all this in a minute. But it's a disc mower, and then it is a conditioner that runs behind it. And what that means is it cuts the hay, cuts the grass, and runs it through this other piece. In this case, it's a flail conditioner. There are two basic types of conditioners, flail conditioners and roller conditioners. We've had both. Both have their pros and cons and places where they're better than others. The flail conditioner does work. I really probably prefer the rollers. I just do. Don't know that it's any better. They work better in stemmy stuff, the rollers do, versus the conditioning flails supposedly work a little bit better in higher grass hays. And so something more like what we're cutting today. I don't know if that's the case. I do know that the flails work because I believe we get probably about a good 1 to 2 days increased dry time, and that's the point of it. When we cut this hay, we're trying to get it dry to bale. If we bale it wet, it will spontaneously combust and heat, or if it doesn't heat up a high enough level to do that, it will at least rot, and we don't really want either one. We don't want it catching on fire, and we don't want it rotting either. So both those things are no good. We're trying to prevent it. And that's what the conditioner does. The conditioner just lets us cut this hay, get it dry a little bit quicker versus it just laying on the ground. We'll also show you running a tedder, and a tedder just scatters these piles of hay out. So again, they'll dry a little bit quicker. And so we're doing all that just to try to get this hay up off the ground faster. There's really two reasons for that. One is the drier it is, the worse nutritional value that it has for the cattle. And what happens is that if we let it dry just all on its own without a conditioner, without a tedder, it's gonna have to lay on the ground for several days before we can bale it. And in that time, what happens, the hay on top gets extremely dry. The hay that's down on the bottom of these windrows is still wet. And so you've really just not got as good a quality. And so what we're trying to do is get it as even as we possibly can as far as the dry down. So we'll go back there and look at the mower in a minute. That shaft that you can maybe see spinning in the video is called a PTO, or a power takeoff. So this tractor is not only pulling the machine, but it's also spinning that shaft, which powers the cutter bar and the conditioner back there at the back. So it's kind of doing two things at one time. This tractor's doing double duty, if you will. The other thing that I point out is just a little bit different in this particular mower over some other ones, and this one we've had for a long time now. But if you see that hitch, it's called a swivel hitch, and it's on a 2-point rather than connecting into the drawbar. And what that does for us, it throws the pivot further behind us. So if you look right here, you can see I can actually turn past 90 degrees, and that just lets me have a little bit more maneuverability in the machine. If we instead had a traditional hitch, it was just hooked to the drawbar of the tractor, it puts that pivot point closer, and we're a little bit more limited on our ability to turn here. So with this swivel hitch being further back, gives us more maneuverability. That is in fact the piece that I showed you earlier is in the process of failing. Now this machine is pushing 20 years old, somewhere in that range. So it's done a fair share of work to have not spent any more money on it than we have up to this point. So we've got to a new complete swivel gearbox ordered that'll be in sometime next week, and we'll be able to install that and get this thing back up and running. So we'll get out in a second. I've got just a little bit here, just mowing right around this pole to finish this field, and we're gonna try to get one more field done today, if at all possible, before this thing decides to completely blow up. So we'll finish this up real fast and go on to that. All right, so I'll show you a little bit about this mower from this perspective. So we've got hydraulic hoses that are controlled from inside the tractor that allow us to swing this thing back and forth as well as raise it up and down. This is that swivel I'm talking about. If you look here from the side, that's the drawbar right down there. So if we had something pinned in it, we just don't have anywhere near as much ability to swing this thing from side to side. So look underneath here. These are the actual cutters. There's a little knife on each side of these things. These are called turtles. They're spinning at a very, very high rate of speed, and this thing is just sitting down, sliding across the ground. When it cuts it, they're throwing it towards the center, and it goes through this thing. These fingers flip up and down and take the hay and rub it against this lid up here. It's supposed to take the waxy residue off of it. I'm just feeling how warm some of these turtles are. They run in an oil bath. There's a shaft that drives them from each end. So this shaft takes power down and sends power all the way across, but it's actually driven from each end of this thing. Cover down and walk around here. See, it's got hydraulic cylinders that lift it on up and down off the ground. So these fins are what makes it into that swath, that windrow that we were talking about. You can see another angle here of the impeller, and it's just dragging the hay across that metal lid and shooting it out. Bandit is always talking to us. But that's kind of the general idea of it. So it's, like I say, it's using that cutter bar to cut it, then it's conditioning it. There's a couple different types of cutters out there. You can get a disc mower that's just that disc cutter bar, no conditioner. And then what everybody used to use for years and years and years was called a sickle mower. And the sickle mower used little knives that slid back and forth. And as they slid back and forth, they cut the hay. And you could either get just a sickle mower, or you could also get a mower conditioner. It was a sickle mower with conditioning rolls in it. I don't know that they ever made a sickle style mower conditioner that used flails. I think the only way you get that is with the disc cutter bar. But anyway, that's just a general walk around of what that thing is and how it works for people that don't really understand that process. All right, so that's what I've been waiting on for a few hours now, is the mower to tell me it's done. And the mower has now told me it's done. It hasn't locked up yet, but I'd say we're only a few short minutes from complete lockup. I got probably 2/3 of this field cut, so that's good. And I probably will just let the cattle eat the rest of it, but we'll roll up what we've got cut on it. And luckily we've got that new housing and gearbox ordered. So listen, I appreciate you guys watching, and I hope that this has been informative. Teach you a few things about how we process hay. There'll be a couple other videos, because we're going to do a video on the tethering that I talked about earlier, as well as when we get ready to rake and roll it, kind of show you what that process is that gets us into that finished bale, that round bale that we're gonna save to winter our cattle on. And so we'll do that over the next few days. And so over the next couple of weeks, you'll get to see kind of that process of hay production. And so I hope you like what we're doing. Be sure and subscribe to our channel. Be sure and check us out. If you live close by, remember that we sell beef in this South Central Kentucky area. We're not shipping anything yet, but if you're interested in Angus beef, that's what we have and what we provide. So until next time, we'll see you. Thanks a lot.